So we start off with Cassian Andor going into a nightclub and asking about his sister. Don't worry about her though, she'll have absolutely nothing to do with anything later. And these cops in the background are like, hey! No cutsies. When Andor leaves, the cops chase him down and he headbutts one of them, and the dude instantly dies. Dumbass. He shoots the other one in the face and damn, what an opening. He goes back home to Ferrix and we see all the main players in the story. His lovable droid B, who's cleaning up the mess Earth left behind until he can find a plant and a boot. There's his best friend Brasso, the Sully to his Mike, Marva, his adopted mother, who treats him much better than she did with Harry Potter, Bix, his old flame, Tim, her jealous boyfriend, Nurchi, who wants the money he owes him, Vetch, who's like, well, point is, there's a lot of people who are sick of his shit. Meanwhile, on Morlana 1, Cyril wants his supervisor to investigate the 2 deaths from the previous night. But he goes, don't you dare bring any attention to this. It's not a big deal. Let's forget it ever happened. But Cyril just can't leave it alone, so he goes around hell-bent on finding out who did this. He goes, what's that? And the guy's like, oh. And Cyril says, I don't know what's worse, that someone got through our borders or that you don't care. He gets encouragement though from this guy, who's like, yes, absolutely. We need to find him because there's fomenting pockets of fomenting. Back on Ferrix, word starts getting out that they're looking for someone fitting Cassian's description. Tim, in a drunken, jealous rage, makes a phone call ratting him out. And then, the bad guys finally know who they're looking for. As they make their way to Ferrix, so does Luthen, the mysterious mastermind that comes to buy a Starpath unit from Cassian. But secretly, he wants to recruit him to fight against the Empire. At first, Cassian's like, you got the wrong guy, pal. And how the hell do you know so much about me? As the bad guys are closing in, Luthen and Cassian barely escape. And this cat and mouse game plays out with so much tension that it makes that one scene in Obi-Wan where these 3 dumbasses can't even catch a baby Leia in a local park down the street all the more stupid.
Let's get her. Oof, a branch. Oh no, another branch. I fell and I can't get up.
My god, that shit was so dumb. Bix gets captured and in trying to rescue her, Tim gets shot and takes a mad tumble down these steps. Karma's a bitch, Tim, you should have known better. They end up stealing a car and making a run for it, but Odip, they get shot at and the car flips over. No! They were so young, so full of life. Psych! They weren't even in the car in the first place. They speed off and blow the car up to really rub it in their faces, and it was at that moment Cyril knew. He fucked up. Luthen explains to Cassian that he's putting together a team to steal the quarterly payroll of an entire Imperial sector. So they visit the planet where they're going to pull off the heist, Aldhani, finally. A planet that's not shot indoors against a giant screen, or out in a desert or some shit. Disney, you cheap fucks. But first, Luthen has to convince Vel that taking Cassian in is a good idea. She's not really paying attention though, and Luthen's like, look at me! And I was like, holy shit. He means business. At the same time, Cassian's thinking about just stealing the ship and taking off. And the ship's like, girl, please. We travel to Coruscant and meet Dedra Miro, a no-nonsense teacher's pet who's out to prove herself to her peers, especially this guy Blevins, and they hate each other so much. Blevins personally travels to Morlana 1 to fire Cyril, his superior, and that fomenting guy. His superior's like, but I had nothing to do with this. Blevins goes, exactly. Meanwhile in space, Luthen puts on a wig, some rings, and becomes Luthan, the fancy Coruscant shop owner who has secret meetings with Mon Mothma, while his assistant directs Mothma's driver Cloris with some terribly interesting coins. Luthan switches back to Luthen and goes, where is my money? And she's like, bro, chill. The Empire is watching every move I make, every step I take. I can't even take a shit without them knowing. And she isn't lying. Her home life sucks. Even though she lives in a nice-ass place, her husband Perrin treats her like trash. Her dirtbag daughter Lita won't listen to her. She might have it the worst in the entire show, straight up. As all this is going on, a disgraced Cyril walks a lonely road, the only road he's ever known, back to his mommy, who slaps the shit out of him and then hugs him. Yeah. I could tell why he grew up to be a weirdo. Back on Aldhani, Vel brings Cassian, who's now Clem by the way, back to camp to meet the rest of the crew. And they're all like, who the fuck is this guy? But after a few days in the woods drinking goat milk or whatever, they all become friends. There's trusty Terramin, silent Cinta, neurotic Nemec, and suspicious Skeen. Throughout all the planning and training for the heist, the two just don't get along. So as they finally start trekking to the garrison, Skeen pulls a knife to his throat, and the truth comes out. Yes, he's being paid for this. He doesn't care about the cause at all. And Cassian's like, so what? Leave me alone. You guys are just nervous about the heist and you're putting all your insecurities on me. And everyone goes, that's pretty much right. Yeah. At the garrison, there's Lieutenant Gorn, their man on the inside that's helping them to pull off this heist. Since it's happening the same night as a rare celestial event called the Eye, the people of this planet, the Aldanis, who the Empire has driven out and slowly pushed to the edge of extinction, make the journey up to watch it. This guy asks, so how many Aldanis do you think there'll be? And Gorn's like, I'm not sure. Still enough to smell them though, right? Damn, that line is diabolical. So the guys put on their uniforms and start marching, while the ladies secretly scuba over and jump off this wall. What is this, Mission Impossible over here? As night falls, the doors close, and it's go time, baby. This guy's like, what is the meaning of this? Do you know who I am? And they're like, shut up! This other guy's like, stop right there. But Cinta shoots his ass anyway, and the heist continues. They make their way to the vault and absolutely ruin this poker game. Like, come on, at least let them finish the game. They get the bad guys ready to move all the money for them, and once it's unlatched, Skeen's like, let's go! And I was getting so hype. This is cinema. Pretty soon, the jig is up, and a gunfight ensues. Will our heroes make it out alive? Vel, Skeen, Nemec, Terra... Oh. Of course. As they make their daring escape, TIE fighters catch up, and seeing all this set against the gorgeous backdrop of the eye, you start to wonder what the other Disney Plus Star Wars shows are even doing. Copying other better Star Wars content, wasting runtime with filler, and remember Reva? What the hell was all that? What is she, Ben Affleck in Daredevil? Andrew Garfield in The Amazing Spider-Man? Rob Schneider in The Animal? Does she know how physics works? I guess not. On a quiet alien planet, Skeen tells Cassian that they should just take the money and run. Cassian begins to see his own selfishness mirrored in this guy, and rather than face that realization head on, he just shoots him. Problem solved. He goes to tell Vel what happened. She's like, bullshit, Skeen would never do that. And Cassian's like, you sure about that? Anyway, bye! Word reaches Luthen that the heist went off, and he celebrates. Mothma shows up, and she's like, was this you? Do you have any idea what you've done? As if they aren't already so far up my ass. Luthen's like, quiet. We needed this. We need the bad guys to wake up. And wake up they do, as they roll up their sleeves and begin to tighten their grip across the entire galaxy. Meanwhile, Cyril's eating cereal as his mother tells him she got him a job. He goes in for an interview, and before you know it, he's refining macro data like there's no tomorrow. Dedra brings him into ISB headquarters to question him about Cassian, and after hearing out his side of the story, wipes away his bad record. Cassian returns home, telling Marva that he hit the jackpot, that they can finally get out of there. But Marva doesn't bite. She's been around long enough to know there's nowhere you can hide without the Empire eventually catching up. Cassian says he'll be worried about her all the time. That's just love. Nothing you could do about that. Am I crying over a Star Wars show? Back on Coruscant, Mothma holds a fancy dinner party with luxurious costume design, flowing camera moves, decorated sets, and this one alien in the background who's like, God, I love the show. Then we see Luthen meet up with Saw Gerrera, and honestly, I have no idea what they're talking about half the time. Then we travel to a planet called Neamos, and see Cassian get caught up in some bullshit that he wasn't even involved in. So much for laying low. He gets unfairly sentenced and ends up on a planet called Narkina 5, where if they take even a step out of line, they get their giblets fried to a crisp. Cassian's like, oh god, you're telling me I just gotta work nonstop? I gotta eat meals through a tube and shit out in the open? Just put me in a regular ass jail, man. This is so much worse. Or I could just do what this guy did. Maybe not though. I don't know, I'll think about it. It's here we meet Kino Loy, the floor manager who believes that if they just keep working, everything will be alright. But little do they know that they're slowly building the Death Star. Back on Ferrix, Bix gets captured, and we meet Dr. Gorst, who tortures her with the choral pleading of dying alien children. Yikes. Come on, Dedra, I thought you were cool. Back on Coruscant, we find out that Vel is actually Mothma's cousin, and she buys Lita a dress that she stupidly twirls around in. God, I hate you. Cyril waits outside ISB headquarters for Dedra, and she's like, are you stalking me? He's like, I just needed to thank you. And she's like, get away from me, you creep. If you ever come near me again, I am gonna end you. Do you understand? Man. What a badass. But I don't know, guys. I think she kinda feeling something. Back on Arkina 5, the actor who plays this old guy Olaf does such a good job with his performance, I legit thought he just died on set while the cameras were rolling. It's this death and the realization that they're never getting out that finally pushes Kino to tell Cassian how many guards are on each level. Never more than 12. Let's fucking go right now, dude. Cassian tells him they need to act fast. Kino's like, what? You don't even have a plan. And they're all like, when the bad guys bring in Olaf's replacement tomorrow, that's when we gotta do it. That's when we gotta break out. We won't get another chance. Cassian says, I'd rather die trying to take them down than die giving them what they want. With this one line, we see him finally coming around to the idea that there's more to life than just running away, which is what you might call a character arc. While all this is happening, Mothma has no other choice but to ask this seedy guy named Davos Skulden for money. In return, he wants to introduce his son to her daughter Lita, and this disgusts Mothma so much, she's just sitting there crying and pissing and shitting. But if it were me, I'd be like, yeah, sure, take her. You can't stand her. At the same time, we learned that this guy in the ISB has been a mole this entire time. For years, he's been infiltrating the bad guys and feeding information to Luthen. Sacrificing his chance at happiness with his family, he asks Luthen, what do you sacrifice? Luthen says calm, kindness, kinship. I've made my mind a sunless space, and I'm down for what I do. I burn my life to make a sunrise I know I'll never see. So what do I sacrifice? Everything! Someone give this man an Oscar right now, holy shit. And if this monologue wasn't badass enough, the very next time we see him, he pulls off the slickest and most daring escape we've ever seen play out in a Star Wars show. Seriously, I'd rather watch this one scene 1,000 times than any of this noise. Back on Arcana, the breakout begins. Will our heroes make it out alive? Of course. And because Cassian flooded the place, the floor short circuits and finally, for the first time ever, the good guys have the upper hand. As they make their way up, the bad guys cower in fear, and we see just how fragile the Empire has been all along. They're human, and because of that, there's still a chance to take them down. Yep, just like that, Kino gives a motivational speech while all the prisoners reach the top, taking in the fresh air for the first time in months. Cassian is forced to leave Kino behind because he can't swim? Seriously? Who can't swim? Just flail your limbs around. Figure it out. Cassian and his buddy Melshi make it to land, where Cassian learns that Marva has died. Back on Ferrix, the town mourns her passing, showing you just what an influential figure she was. And as everyone prepares for her funeral, we see all our main players converge once again. Cassian, Luthen, Dedra, Cyril. Bix is still pretty fried like an egg, but she's in there somewhere. Cinta, watching Vel, watching Nurchi, watching this guy. Brasso delivers Marva's final words to Cassian. Tell him I love him more than anything he could ever do wrong. And when the day comes, he will be an unstoppable force for good. The arc is complete. Cassian now assumes the role as the hero, and he's not the only one. When a giant hologram of Marva riles up the entire town to stand up for what's right, each and every person has their own reason to fight. And so, all hell breaks loose. Vel rushes into the chaos like Bruce Wayne. Stormtroopers, for the first time in Star Wars, are not missing. Yikes. Can we cut away or... no? Gonna make us sit in this moment, huh? So as the 12 jam-packed episodes come to an end, our characters are all laid out on the board. Bee, Bix, Brasso, and Willman fly off into the sunset. Cyril saves Dedra from a mob, which starts to melt her icy cold exterior. Mothma presents Lita to Davos Skolden's son. Good riddance, am I right? And Cassian and Luthen are back together again. And only time will tell what happens in Season 2.